Good morning, world of readers! I am Book Dragon Erin, and I would like to welcome you all back to my BookTube channel. Today's video is more of a book talk than a book review. I will be organizing my entire dark romance collection by Trope. These are primarily paperbacks. I have tons more on my Kindle, and I have a lot, and I mean a lot, of hardcovers too. I will actually organize these books by the trope that comes first when featured on Goodreads if it gives that option. Since my dark romance collection is so extensive, today's video is based only on the paperbacks I have, not including my Kindle books because otherwise we would be here from now until doomsday. I am here for your bookish pleasures and absolutely love giving out book recommendations of all sorts, not just dark romance, so I hope everyone here enjoys today's video. The first trope we will be discussing is the accidental marriage / marriage of convenience novels that I have. I actually have like 5 or 6 of them on my Kindle, but only in paperback do I have Blame It on the Vodka by Fiona Cole. Now, I am a huge fan of Fiona Cole's work, so I am rather impatiently waiting on the other books to arrive in the mail or download somehow on my Kindle. Since that's my only accidental marriage paperback, we are moving along to BDSM romances. Now, anyone who knows me knows I love BDSM. I love the trust, the smut, the steam, the depth of feeling, the power, everything. Love it. We have Dance For Me by K.L. Parker, This Man by Jodi Ellen Malpas. This is a modern classic BDSM fiction novel that I am obsessed with. Tell me your opinion. Is the This Man trilogy better than the entire 50 Shades of Grey franchise? Before we continue, I just want to talk a little bit about how I originally got into reading dark romance novels. So, when I was a teenager, the 50 Shades of Grey series came out. I wanted so badly to read the books and see the movies, but since I was underage, my mom said absolutely not. She will not allow the DVDs in our house, nor will she allow those books in our house. So I saved up my paychecks for like 3 months, and then I bought every single dark romance novel that I could find, and anything that wasn't 50 Shades of Grey, I basically bought. So I displayed them all in my room, and then my mom walks in one day to talk to me about why my bank account is so low. It was worth it though, and my mom said, wait a minute, these are all dark romance books. I thought I said no 50 Shades in this house. And I said, Mom, you said no 50 Shades of Grey, so I bought everything else. I am not breaking your rule because I don't have 50 Shades of Grey. And to this day, I have not read the series, even though I kind of want to. Even though some people say it's so poorly written. So anyway, my mom just looks around and says, well, I guess this is okay. I did say no 50 Shades of Grey, but if you think, Erin, that I haven't read anything darker than 50 Shades of Grey or didn't go through a dark romance phase of my own in my 20s like you are so mistaken. I have read everything. And I'm like, Mom, hold the phone. What books have you read that are darker than all of these books that I have? Tell me now. I want to read everything you have. And my mom said, no, I'm not telling you because I don't want you to look at me any differently. And I'm like, Mom, you just saw all my books on BDSM and kinky stuff and everything. It was so funny. And my mom's like, yeah, I'm never telling you unless you guess the books. Like, if you come across one on your Kindle and you show it to me, I'll tell you if I read it or not. And I'm like, Mom, here are all the books. And my mom's like, okay, I read that one. I didn't read that one. I heard good things about this book. And I'm like, wow, Mom, where did all this come from? She is so into religion and very much a proper vintage woman, and she told me that everyone in our family, going back at least 3 generations, has been obsessed with dark romance novels in their 20s, and personally, I don't see my dark romance reading phase ever going away. So, with that in mind, let's continue with this little book talk video. Then we also have Release Me by Jay Kenner, second book in the series, Claim Me. And then the third book in the trilogy, we have Complete Me. Moving on to biker/MC romances. Now, for those of you who don't know, MC stands for Motorcycle Club, so all of the books I am about to list are motorcycle gang romances. First up is Jack by Penny D. This is more of a romantic suspense novel, and I'm about 75% through this book, and I am dying for Jack and Bronte to sleep together. They deserve each other, they are meant for each other, they love each other, and everything gets in the way of their romance, and it's like, come on, just give Jack and Bronte a break so they can sleep together. So the suspense is killing me in reading this romance novel. Then we have Welcome to the Dark Side by Gianna Darling. However, I can't actually remember where I placed that book. I don't know if my mom is currently reading it. That would actually surprise me if she did read it. But moving on. We also have Rough Love by Summer Cooper and Sienna Chance. I actually bought this novel for $2 on Amazon. And I didn't know if this was a paranormal romance about angels, or a biker romance, or a bit of both. And I will explain. This is a biker romance, but Sage here, the guy on the cover, looks like an angel for a reason I don't personally know. If anyone can tell me why he has wings, feel free to comment below and explain this to me. It will be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. The next trope that we will be discussing is a little bit taboo for me. It's actually the cheating romance trope, where one of the characters is cheating on their boyfriend or is the partner of a person who's cheating on their partner in this love story. And generally, I refuse to read cheating romances because I take relationships very seriously. However, the one author who can make cheating romances sexy is Gianna Darling. I loved reading The Affair by Gianna Darling, and I am 1000% against cheating, but I can't say no to a Gianna Darling novel, even if it goes against my morals about a relationship. And then we have its sequel, The Secret. I have not read this book yet, but I plan to get around to doing it eventually. Next, we have the classic Colleen Hoover romances. Yes, these books of hers get a shelf of their very own. We have All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover, Confess, Heart Bones. This is a tearjerker. I cried so many times in reading this novel. Hopeless, Losing Hope, and It Ends With Us. Then we have Layla, November 9, Slammed, a taboo teacher-student romance novel that I absolutely devoured, and This Girl. Next up is Ugly Love. I devoured this novel. This is actually by far my favorite Colleen Hoover novel of all time. Then we have Verity, and Without Merit, my final book in the Colleen Hoover romance collection. Next up, we will discuss college romances. Now, with college romances, I either love them or I hate them, depending on the book. It's very particular, but I do love teacher-student romances if they're both basically consenting adults. However, if one of the party does not want the attention from that teacher, that's when I have a problem with it, and I refuse to read any dark romance novel with the teacher-student relationship where it's negative. Anyway, discussing the books themselves, we have Chasing Red by Isabel Ronan. This is my favorite college romance novel of all time. Then we have Crowned Crows of Thorn Point by Veronica Eden. I do have a bunch of Veronica Eden novels, and I love every single one of them. And then we have its sequel, Loyalty in the Shadows. And then we have Dark Heart by Ella James, which is a book I DNF'd a couple times because this book just wasn't really my cup of tea. However, I really do want to finish reading this entire novel and then review it for you guys because I read this novel so you don't have to, or this book grows on me halfway through reading it. More on college romances, we have Sweet Talker by Elle Kennedy, Hot and Bothered, and Hot and Heavy, Running Wild by K.A. Tucker. And we also have Stay With Me by Nicole Fiorina. I actually read Nicole Fiorina's books because More to Mary, another booktuber, recommended her work highly, so anything More to Mary recommends is a book that I am going to read, no doubt about it. She could recommend the phone book in a dark romance twist, and I would read the phone book with a dark romance twist. Then we have The Dare by Harley LaRue. This is my favorite holiday-themed dark romance novel. This is a Halloween night romance novel that surpassed all my expectations, and this is the one book that convinced me that the degradation kink can sometimes be hot as hell. When I read Harley LaRue's book, I was hooked. I wish this book was longer. It's only like 150 pages, and I really wish there was a sequel because I would devour it in a day. Now moving on into dark fairy tale retellings that I devoured in a matter of days. We have A Game of Retribution by Scarlett St. Clair and A Touch of Malice by Scarlett St. Clair. I am aware that those are the second and third and fourth books in a series. However, the other books in the series that are prequels to the books that I just listed are on my Kindle. And I'm not discussing those because that would take forever, like I said, from now until Doomsday. Then moving on to Katie Roberts' books, we have Neon Gods, Electric Idol, and Wicked Beauty. All these books by Katie Robert are Greek myth retellings. And even though Learn My Lesson is a Greek myth retelling, it's still more focused on a trio romance than actual Greek mythology. So that's why I'm not listing it here. I'll talk about that in a sec. Now discussing drug fiction romance novels, we have Ecstasy by K.V. Rose, and then we also have Opium Skies by C.M. Radcliffe, which is my favorite drug fiction novel of all time. And then we have Black Clouds of Cotton, which is also by C.M. Radcliffe. Now, the reason I am not showing the paperbacks right now is because they're still arriving in the mail, and I have yet to receive them in the mail. I did read them on my Kindle, but I wanted the paperbacks just to say, hey, I have the paperbacks. For some reason, I do love drug fiction romance novels, but I stand for everything fighting against real-life addiction. I have seen friends and family go through addiction, so I know what it feels like to see what their fall is like. I can't explain how much the high is not worth the devastating crash, ladies and gentlemen, and all in between. It isn't. You may think drugs are cool, and in the moment it will be cool, but afterwards you will fall so hard, you will be in a mental hell. A quick story on drugs. Now, even though I have never done drugs once in my life, and I plan on never doing it ever, in high school, during health class, one of my friends was giving a presentation on the most common forms of ecstasy. Now, it had just been Valentine's Day, and everyone knows I love candy necklaces. So I was munching on candy necklace bracelets and everything. And then while I was eating one, my friend was going through her presentation. She said the most common form of ecstasy is in the form of candy necklaces. Everyone in the entire class looked at me as I'm munching on my bracelets, and I'm like, guys, these are not drugs. This is just candy. And I never lived it down that people thought that I was doing drugs in health class during school hours. It's hilarious now, but back then I had to go to the principal and the teacher and explain. It was Valentine's Day, it was around my birthday, I was eating candy necklaces because they were gifts to me. I am not on drugs. I know I'm a little crazy sometimes, but I am not on drugs. So that was my drug story, even though I was never on drugs. Moving on to my gothic romance hoard, I have a bunch on my Kindle, but only one paperback, and that paperback is Haunting Adeline by H.G. Carlton. Now, I have not read this book yet, but I definitely plan to. On to discussing my mafia romance hoard, we have Deadly Temptations by Aurora Black and Tormented by Alexi Ferreira. Tormented is a 365 days retelling, while 365 Days was a 50 Shades retelling, while 50 Shades was originally a Twilight Saga fanfiction. I am telling you all of this right now because every retelling since Twilight has been even worse than the previous. This is quite possibly one of the worst books I ever read because not a lot of logic went into writing this book. There is a hospital wing in the basement, every person lives on the same floor, and then there's a launch pad for helicopters and planes on the roof, and none of this book made sense. And then when the heroine finds out that she's pregnant, she's sitting on a sofa and just like, oh, I'm pregnant, that's awesome. And then the cops come, and it's like, okay, miss, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine, I'm just pregnant by the man who originally abducted me, but who I fell in love with. And so she's going all into Stockholm Syndrome, and she's willing to do it. What the fuck? And then I was stupid enough to buy the sequel, Turmoil. I am not reading this book. I am not reading Tormented again, because I was tormented in reading Tormented. Now, for my menage romances and reverse harem romance novels. These are romances about trio action, or are about a girl with multiple boyfriends and or people with more than one sexual partner in the span of a night and or week. First up is Cursed Mate by Jen L. Gray. Then we have Hellgate by Veronica Eden. And then we have Learn My Lesson by Katie Robert. This book can also be considered part of the dark retelling romances due to this being a Hades Meg Hercules romance, despite having nothing to do with the original Greek mythology. Because if it did, then Hades and Hercules would be uncle and nephew, not that they are in this book, and I would not have read that book if there was incest in it, but since Hades and Hercules are not related by blood, I devoured that book. And then we have You're Mine Tonight by Lucia Franco. Moving on to my small town romances, we have Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is a thick book, and I loved it. I love thick books in general, but this book holds a special place in my heart. And then we also have Forever Never, also by Lucy Score. I have not read this book yet, but again, this is a thick book, so I'm going to devour it in a matter of days. Now for my no specific trope romances, we have Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino, Rampage by D.M. Burns, Twisted Love by Anna Huang, and Twisted Games, also by Anna Huang. This list could never be complete without a book by Nikki Sloan. We have The Doctor, an actual doctor, not Doctor Who, although that would be pretty cool if Doctor Who was a piece of inspiration for any of these dark romance novels. I have all of the books in the Nashville Neighborhood series. However, the other books that I have by Nikki Sloan in that series are on my Kindle. I only have one paranormal romance paperback, and that is The Dark King by Gina L. Maxwell. I have a ton of paranormal romance ebooks on my Kindle, but surprisingly, I only have one full-blown romance novel paperback, and I think that's actually a bit surprising. Now for my Lauren Asher book collection, we have The Fine Print and Terms and Conditions. Where sports romance novels are concerned, these are also books by Lauren Asher, and they include Throttled, Collided, Wrecked, and Redeemed. Bored by Margot Scott is my only stepfamily romance novel paperback, and this novel is about a 17-year-old girl falling in love with her BDSM-obsessed step-uncle who can't help but fall for her, too. As far as sugar daddy romances, I only have 3 books of that type, and there is a reason for that. But those books include Rush by Maya Banks, Fever, and Burn. I see the sugar baby industry as somehow legal prostitution with guidelines, and I want no part of that falsely glamorized lifestyle, so I will admit this here and now. I have never read a sugar baby, sugar daddy romance novel before in full, but I did buy several of this trope before finding out what these books were about plot-wise. Maya Banks is an amazing author. I'll give her a chance, but it is still hard for me to get through these books because I don't approve of the sugar baby lifestyle. I would like to know your opinions. Are these books worth reading? Because I read halfway through Rush and I was sick of it. Should I give this book a chance? Comment below. Your answers will be greatly appreciated. Even though I love the teacher romance novel trope where the girl is 18 and legal and actually wants a relationship with this teacher, I am so against anything where the student is underage or if the teacher is literally preying on the student. However, I do have several teacher-student romance novels, and that is a conundrum because I was sexually harassed by teachers in the past. But in the teacher romance novels that I have enjoyed, they include Misbehaved by Charlie Rose. This is between an older man and a younger woman. And my next teacher-student romance paperback is Lessons in Corruption by Gianna Darling, which is between an older woman and a younger man. However, I misplaced that paperback, so until I find it, you are only going to get a picture of it instead of the full paperback copy. The only other author who is going to get a shelf of her very own is Zoe Blake. Zoe Blake is one of my favorite indie authors of all time, so she does get a category of her own here. And seriously, I implore you guys to read her work, which is so amazing. I have not been let down once by any of her books. First off, we have Savage Vow. Marry me, Gregor Ivanov. I will be waiting at the altar. If you propose to me at 6 p.m. at a formal dinner, we would be married by midnight and have at least 4 babies within 2 years. Then we also have Vicious Oath and Betrayed Honor. Those 3 books were in the Ivanov crime family trilogy series, and oh my gosh, I loved it. I wish there was an HBO adaptation with all the sex scenes and all the kinks. And I wasn't generally into the spanking kink in the past, but Zoe Blake makes it hot, so I want to try it out. And then we also have Sweet Cruelty, Sweet Depravity, and Sweet Savagery. More books are arriving in the mail as we speak. That shouldn't come as a surprise because I am Book Dragon Erin, and I hoard books like dragons hoard gold, so the name makes sense. I hope that everyone enjoyed today's video, so I will see you all next Sunday when I am back to reviewing more books. Have a great rest of the week, everyone!